David versus Goliath, a QEW battle. Toronto FC will be at Tim Hortons Field on July 10th to take on Forge FC in the semifinals of the Canadian Championship. For tickets, go to forgefc.ca/tickets or call 905-527-FORGE.
This is Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell on the Forge Audio Network.
Welcome to this episode of Forge Daily. I am your host, Mackenzie Barwell, coming to you June 17th, 2024. Forge FC are back in Hamilton now after their away match in Halifax. They had the day off today. I was going to say thank goodness for that because it's pouring rain right now at Tim Hortons Field. Tomorrow I'll have an opportunity to chat with Coach Bobby for another episode of Behind the Beard, as well as some players throughout the week as Forge look ahead to their next home match against Valour FC this coming weekend. Today, though, I am joined by Steve Milton to break down that Halifax matchup from this past Saturday. And as always, we had a lot to discuss, so let's skip right to our conversation and today's episode.
Okay, Milty, week 10 of the CPL just came to a close. We've got a match to discuss, and that is the 2-2 draw between the Halifax Wanderers and Forge FC. This was, down to the wire. I don't know how close Forge could have cut it here, but coming away with 1 point on either side, do you think after watching that match, it was worthy of a draw?
That's a really tough question. I think Halifax could have easily, HFX could have easily taken the 3 points, and that would have been the third straight 2-1 game
for Halifax.
Yeah, at home against visiting Forge, and last year it was the same thing. 2-1 games there. So the 2-1 here too.
Yeah, but both of those won off of penalties, so a familiar situation for Forge.
Well, that's true. I mean, but Halifax deserved to have got that penalty. They really forced the issue. That said, Forge for much of the first half there was, one of those situations where they could have had, quite a few, they had quite a few chances and could have put some things away, but still it was a little reversion in the first half to what we thought we've said before, which is, find that net, create those chances. Yes. Which I thought they were doing. Particularly, Chouanière and Borges and a bunch of them had chances, but couldn't find the net again. And I don't know if it's moving or what. It's just one of those little pieces right now. So what do you think? I mean, are you happy about those 2 points if you're a Forge fan? Are you happy about the 1 point?
I think if you're Halifax, you're disappointed, naturally.
I think you are because normally, had they had a win underneath them, let's remember, they had 8 games, their first 8 games of the season, they did not have a win. And just like last year, and then, it looked like in the 9th game, they were going to get their win and they didn't. So if they'd had a win under them already, and then you said to them beforehand, Forge is going to have 60 some odd percentage of the possession, and you're going to come out of this with 1 point. How are you going to feel? I think you would have said, okay, if you'd already had a win under, but right now it just looks like, oh no, another draw. Now they're playing fairly well, but they really need to pile up some points. So I think they're disappointed. If I'm Forge, I'm happy that I came back. That's the mark of a champion, coming back, and the relentlessness with which they did, especially after they surrendered early. But I'm not happy with this game. If I'm Forge, I'm really not happy with this game. There were too many things. Yes, missing the net's one thing, but they created the chances, which were good. But there were far too many errant passes, even in the first half. And you saw it develop in the second half into something, that led to what looked like was going to be a loss, were those errant passes that happened a lot in the first half too. And that's, for a control team, errant passes aren't part of your obviously game plan.
Yeah, no, you're right. There definitely were some unforced errors on this Forge side, and they were more obvious or consequential, I could say, in the second half, but some carelessness potentially in the back line. And we saw that in the first half as well. But you're right. If you're Halifax, I think you made a good point, Milty, in saying that situationally speaking, it's a lot more disappointing than had they had a win or two under their belt. Yeah. It's one of those things where, it is what it is. We played a good game. And I would argue that both of these teams were relentless. The broadcasters made a good point in saying the 70th minute, there was no chance that there wasn't going to be another goal scored.
That's true.
Because
Yeah.
you just tell it didn't look like they were 70 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like the 30th minute.
That's really well put, because the first half, in a lot of ways, and I'm not sure how much the weather had to do with that. I mean, you've played.
This is true.
I really haven't, and so I don't know what turf. You saw some guys go down on both teams, and maybe some of the fancy plays that they were looking for weren't able to develop because the ball didn't move as smoothly. A couple of times, although, a lot of those long clearing passes stayed in, and as they did against Montreal. They stayed in play where they might have gone over the end line or the touch line. But
right.
Yeah, I don't know how much that had how much did that have a play a factor, especially when it's grass, it's a different kind of turf than you're used to.
It is grass. Milty,
it is
right.
grass, and are you able to plant as well? Does that have something to do with some of the errant shots? And of course, their goalkeeper made a couple of really big saves early too. Mm-hmm. I mean, Forge could have jumped out to a pretty good lead here.
Yeah. Well, let me just preface this by saying I never had any experience playing on these professional fields.
No.
So whenever I was playing in the rain, it was also grass that was way too long.
Yeah.
So my initial reaction when I saw it was pouring rain on the broadcast was, oh no, this is going to be a really slow and sloppy game, because that's been my experience playing. But again, the play-by-play made a great point in saying this is a nice pitch, and because that's the case, it's a lot faster. The tempo's increased, the pace of play is higher, and everything's of course slick with the rain.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that it was as problematic as I had initially thought.
No, I think if it was, and that's what I was asking as somebody who played, whether or not it maybe makes you hesitate for a moment. Make sure your plant foot is good so you don't go down. Do you skim across the ball a little bit too much at times? Do you try to keep it down? Do you try to get it up? And I think it might have that might have showed a little bit, and we'll get to him later, but when Nana came into the game, I thought he took a little bit too much time on his first opportunity, where
he did.
And I'm wondering if that might have had something to do with it was his first time, obviously his first time in the league. He'd just been on the field for a couple of minutes, and he gets a chance, but he may be thinking just a little bit too much there. He should have taken that shot earlier than he did. Right?
Well, for Nana in particular, he's first game coming into these kind of weather conditions. I think that for him is just a very big adjustment. Mm-hmm. Not to say he's never played in rain before, but to get his first touch on the pitch in a Forge jersey like that is a little strange. And to your point, I think he could tell. He knew he took too much time. Yeah. You could see it in the way that he reacted after, the ball was saved, and he stood on it for a little too long, but he made up for it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, he really did. And he had some chances, and he's another guy that everybody's going to have to mark, and it's pretty clear that he's going to be something. And as you and I talked going into the game, the biggest thing that I think people around Forge are happy about is that he's going to be here for the Canadian Championships. That's kind of, which we consider an international game, I think you and I, don't we? I mean, it really is, because it's not a league game. You're playing against a team that actually plays in another country. Yeah.
And that's what these guys come to Forge for. So I think it is fair to say that.
For international exposure, yeah. So anything else catch your eye there? Anything else jump out about this game?
Well, I want to go back. Yeah, I want to rewind a little bit, because the thing you said about Dav Chouanière stood out to me as well. He had a couple opportunities, actually within the first 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. One stopped by the post, one just outside the front post. He mishit it, and I think he was quite disappointed in himself on that one. But
it was a great play. It was a great play from beginning to end on that one.
And Dad was making some really great runs in behind. And shockingly, he was open on probably 3 or 4 in a row.
That's right.
And I think that's especially why he was so disappointed in missing one of the second or third opportunities he had.
That's the hole they saw, I think, on film against Halifax, right? They knew where the pocket was, and that was one of the pockets. Was on that left side of their. It
was crystal clear for everybody watching. So I think he knew he wasn't going to continually get that after he got it probably the 3rd or 4th time. But looking at this starting 11, Milty, 2 changes. Garv Matusala back after some international duty with Haiti. We didn't see Malik Awolabi Bellawoo, which, to be honest, surprised me, and I did want to get your opinion on that because he put up some. Not only has he been putting up really impressive stats throughout this season, but if you look at that last game against Cavalry, like, you thought, I would be under the impression that he was going to be, rewarded in some way for that.
I mean, it didn't come up when I talked to Bobby the day before, just casually on a number of things. So I'm not sure that maybe, and I thought I saw him on the pitch for training. And so I don't know if there was something going on there. And there could be. I mean, he was coming off some things. So there could be been some kind of recurrence there that they wanted to be safe, especially on a wet pitch. Because again, footwork, something can happen. You can pull something or re-injure what he, is injured from before, all of those kinds of things. So I know I'm supposed to know this stuff, and I actually don't. I don't know what that was about.
Hey, you and me both.
So
honestly,
I think we better figure that out, and we'll write about it on the site this week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even at the end, right? The last couple of substitutions were real young guys. Right, the really young guys, right? So, not that Malik is old.
No.
By any means.
21-year-old Malik Awolabi Bellawoo.
Yeah, old man. Well, against a couple of them, he is. He's.
It's true.
A couple of the 18 and 19-year-olders. He is.
Yeah.
He is there, but
no, I was just going to say, let's work through in chronological order here because we want to get to those substitutions, to which I think Bobby made very strategically after Halifax's second goal. After a few of those chances we saw from Dav Chouanier, a strange, I would say, yellow card given to Alex Achinioti Jonson, and we briefly talked about this off camera, but from the looks of it, he received the foul call. Alex not agreeing with it after his jersey was pulled a little bit by a Halifax player. He contests the call and receives a yellow.
I found that weird.
I don't know if it was warranted. I'm going to be honest.
I don't think it was. I mean, other than, I mean, not a yellow card in 9 minutes. I mean, was that ninth minute?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, there's 80 minutes to go in a game, and a guy's suddenly playing under the cloud of a yellow, which means a lot of different things. I mean, especially if you're a defender, because you're getting a lot of people coming at you. So you need to play, especially if you play that kind of thing. I mean, the referees can't take into account who the guy is, but I think they should take into account what the moment of the game is. Like, what is that? That seems to me a little bit, okay, you guys aren't going to run all the way over me, all right? The referee trying to establish some control. I don't think there was any control. It wasn't. If he wanted to call a yellow because of some physicals, if he doesn't call it, tugging the yellow and all of those kinds of things, then you're not establishing control. So the kind of control he was trying to establish, it seemed to me, was respect for the referee. I don't think that's the most important thing. I think that, it is. You've got to show that. I mean, there's only one ref, so, at least one number one ref. You've got to show but I don't think that was.
No.
I don't think it was valid.
I agree, because I think a ref is going to see pushback on so many calls. So for him to call a yellow that early, knowing
you can do that a different way, Mac. You can do that by calling the guy over, moving him away, so everybody on the pitch can see you warning him. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what you do in that situation. Establishing control. And basically when you do that, what you're kind of saying to everybody else is A, respect, B, if you don't, this will be a yellow card. You don't start with a yellow. Sorry, that's just, and I'm sure, and I don't know how often they complain, they send in written reports about this, but I think they've got to, because it puts him into, you don't want to be playing yellow card situation.
Milty, you said it perfectly when Alex is playing under the cloud of a yellow. Mm-hmm. He's a defender. He has to be careful in the way that he moves. He can't be too aggressive, and he's got 80 minutes left in the game. Yeah,
and there's a yellow card rule on totals through the league too. So, got to watch all that stuff, and I think it was just frivolous. That's the word for it. It was frivolous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, and I think Coach Bobby agreed too. You could see it in the very precarious look that he had on his face.
Lucky he didn't get a yellow at times, like if, he probably said more than Alex did. There could have been
No, actually, that's a good point.
It didn't end up. We don't know if it ended up affecting it. It did not. I don't think in any way. I mean, Alex is going to be Alex, and he doesn't take crap.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this though, because I don't know maybe if the ref misinterpreted the situation, and I don't want to beat this to death, so we'll move on quickly here. Yeah. But I do want to get your perspective on CPL and VAR because you cover so many. Yeah, okay, go.
Gotta come. Now, it costs money. And do they have enough cameras and all of those kinds of things? There's a lot to this. But especially, and I'll mention this again, you know, as the rise of gambling, you better have VAR in it. That's just my mind. You've got to not only, it's like the law, Mac, is my feeling on this one, is that you not only have to make the right decision, you have to appear, it not only has to be fair, it has to appear to be fair. Mm-hmm. And those they're not mutually exclusive, but they don't always go together. Right. So the appearance of being fair is what VAR adds to it. And that adds to, I don't think it's a problem in this league, but I think you have to have it at some point. I'm getting the money for it and putting all that together. I don't know where that stands right now. And I would suspect it's on the things to do list for this league.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know what? You're right. I've spoken to Commissioner Mark Noonan before, and he's talked about it.
Has he?
You know?
Okay.
So
I'm glad. Yeah.
Conversation. That's not to say that it's next on the to-do list, but you have to wonder how situations like this one and potentially games can change with that, because Alex, you got to give credit to him, was pushing back for a good reason. And when it's up to the ref and the moment that he sees it in one glance to make the call, there's not really much that either side can do in that situation without it.
No, that's right. Yeah. So, and again, because of the manner in which to get it right in VAR, you have to have a lot more cameras too. I mean, that's one of the other situations. And again, that falls under, dollars.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty big thing to take on. Right. Let's keep going here, Milty, though. So after halftime, I have a photo of the stats here. Almost 60-40 possession, Forge Halifax. 21 duels won on the Forge side and 13 from Halifax. 7 shots for Forge and 3 for Halifax. That's after the first 45 minutes. So what would you imagine Coach Bobby saying in the locker room? Is it a matter of keep doing what you're doing and be clinical now?
Keep doing what you're doing. But I think knowing Bobby, he's also going to mention the things I mentioned right off the top. There were some sloppy things they got away with. And like some really soft passes, and maybe some of that had to do with the turf, but that makes it even more egregious in my mind, because you got to be careful, right? You have to be careful, and there wasn't just one, there was several. I mean, even Chouanier had one, right? So there were. I want to think. I didn't see that in any stat, but I want to say there were 3 or 4 passes there that if they wouldn't be called, and I like your term, forced errors, if they wouldn't be technically called takeaways on the other team's part, there would be ones that the Forge would want back. So that would be part of it. But I would assume that they would say, keep that press going, keep that press going, keep that press going, and they did. And after all of that time coming down, I think the one side, I think it was off the other side, wasn't it? Right after the half.
3 minutes in.
Right.
So that's why I asked the question, because, on one hand, I do think it's a matter of clean this up. We just gave away 4 passes for no good reason. But take a look at the stats. We have control of this game. Let's push forward now and be confident in that. Credit to, who was it? I think it was Dav who chipped it back to him.
Yeah.
But for Benni to put his actual, I don't know if life on the line is the right way to put this, but it was a brave header, okay? Like he put he put himself into danger.
Striker's goal. Striker's goal.
Yeah.
Even if you hit it sort of at the goalkeeper or something, there might be a fat rebound for 2 players coming in on it. But it was a great play, and it was striker's
It was perfectly placed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
what did you make of the Benni Badi'backflip?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, this game is about entertainment. So, and goals are really hard to come by. There was frustration there, not getting goals in the first half when they could have had some. I think that there was a release point, and I just think it's great. And now, of course, he's got to do it every time, and he hope, and fans will be yelling for him to score because, they've got to, they want to see it. Everybody wants to see celebrations, and guys develop develop their own celebration. And I watched them practice exactly that play, by the way. And I don't know that it always came from Dab on the one side, but twice during practice this week, he had Benny had diving headers, and a couple of other guys did. So and it was something they worked on a lot. It was a little more off set pieces than that one, but eventually the back end of a set piece is similar to a play like that. So
yeah, no kidding. It definitely translates there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love when Benny does that kind of thing. And what's crazy too, Milty, is I asked him about this last season, and he said that he never actually learned how to do a backflip. His brothers would do it, and he just copied them at one point.
Yikes!
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure I want to see my kids or my grandkids say, "Oh, I don't know how to backflip, but I'm going to do one." So.
It worked out for Benny. I don't know how the first try went, but he seems to have got it down by now.
Yeah, no, he's an athlete, and he's he's just free. He's a spirit, those kinds of things. I mean, they got a lot of interesting young men on this team, and that's why I like talking to them all the time, because they're there's a lot of they surprise you with a lot of stuff they say, and then some of them will be a little reserved. I thought Nana, when he talked to you, was a little bit reserved. I think he isn't quite that way on the pitch. So
totally, yeah. Well, he's getting acquainted.
He doesn't know who any of us are. He's trying to, I remember he came up to me just before they left the other day and said, "What's your name again? I just want to make sure I know everybody." So you can see he's feeling everything out, and feeling everybody out.
It was nice too to see him come on, because Milty, the response from Halifax after Benny's goal was a pretty quick turnaround, to say the least. Not even 3 minutes later or something to that effect. Jas would do a really great job in making himself big in net, but unfortunately the ball would be deflected off of him. And then Massimo Ferrin again puts one into the back of the net. Jas was a little bit out of position there.
And what a great response! I mean, really, by them, because you could feel the stadium go, and then but. Boy, it was really exciting, I think, for local fans to see that goal, especially, and you have to remember the mystique that the Forge has. Sometimes we forget that here. And we come to expect certain things of them. We know how good they are, and we put a lot of things, because we've seen them all the time. Sometimes you're a little more critical on the team that you see more often. That can include fans, even though they love them, they can also, because their expectations are high. And because you see them more often than you see any other team, you see the flaws more, where other teams have way more flaws. You just don't see them very often, because you don't see those teams very often. So, you see them a couple of times a year in your and four if you happen to watch every game on TV. So, for them to come back there, and that was a big thing in that stadium, because everybody knows who Forge is and how strong they are. They're good soccer fans there. And big crowd, they're all kind of revved up, and their team, they know, has been playing a little bit better, and I thought they really helped them from that point on. I thought the crowd really helped them from that point on.
Yeah,
they were really into it.
And considering the weather, I was impressed.
Yeah,
the energy was absolutely there.
That's the second game in a row they've drawn well over 6,000 in the rain. I mean, it was worse last week there. They had not thunderstorms, but close to it.
Kudos to Halifax, though, for turning it around as quick as they did.
Well, they did, and then to really start peppering the things, and especially with the long passes, they saw something there. Again, one of the things they saw is they could hammer the hell out of the ball, and it's not going to go out of bounds, because it's going to land. It's gonna somebody going to be able to run onto it, and
they did. And I think, Milty, I got to go back on what I said earlier. I may have misspoke when I said Massimo Ferrin, of course, made that first goal for Halifax, which he did.
Yeah.
But then he would put a second one away later on in the game, I think around the 64th minute. And to your point, Halifax in the box, Forge making a mistake, specifically Malcolm Duncan, who kind of missteps.
Just the wrong, the difference there was a foot and a half? Yeah. If he's on the, you just have to be a little on the other side, or I don't, and it might have been just the manner in which the ball came into, because somebody else got beat on the right, on the Forge left side for that to happen, at least allowed that ball to come through. That's the problem, when you get a guy like with Malcolm at the end who makes the one that puts the ball into a PK, that shows the most because you're the last line of defense, literally and figuratively. You forget what happened 50 yards up the pitch. It just, like there were a couple of little things there that didn't go right.
Yeah, no, Milty, you're absolutely right to point that out. And it is unfortunate for the defender caught in the box. Like, it's just...
Well, yeah, and then you just have to recover from that. The one thing about playing in the back, on the outside, a little less so, certainly in the middle and the back, is that stuff's going to happen, because you're playing against the best shooters in the game and the best pressurized people, pressuring people in the game. So you've got to be able to be we've mentioned this a million times, you've got to be like a relief pitcher in baseball. All right, the guy hit a home run here, I got to get this guy out. So you cannot live even in the previous minute, because more's going to come at you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think particularly in this Halifax game, I think they felt a lot more in control than they did in Cavalry, for example, because it didn't turn into something. I didn't think that they were playing out of their principles or out of their playing style, because they had control, they had possession. It didn't turn into, a multi-transitional game like we saw at times in Cavalry. So I think that's a big part in what contributed to them eventually being able to put one away. The final goal was scored, the 93rd minute, I think you said?
Yeah. 2 minutes at least into extra time. They had, you could have got frustrated because they had a couple of chances.
Yes.
And leading up to that and thinking, oh boy, is this one of those ones where here it goes, the net's moving on us again. And no, they ended up, making it work. So.
Yeah. And, the Forge FC striker that is Kwesi Poku puts one away.
That was a very popular goal among his teammates.
Well, Milty, we're nearing the end here, so I don't want to go too long, but I want to briefly preface that the next matchup we'll be talking about is Valour FC. Any last words before we wrap this up? Because I know you have some things on Valour that might be worth saying.
Well, I think they started to feel good because they played 8 games on the road. And including one in Hamilton, and they get home. They put on a little bit of flurry, but they have lost now a couple in a row. I mean, they've been playing some of the better teams, of course, and they lost 3-2 in Winnipeg. But even that, there was some value in that for them because they fell behind early. They were completely, I thought, dominated in the first half, 2-0, and then but right before the end of the half, Sean Hundle scored, and you got to watch them. They're going to have to watch him when they play next week. He tied it, and then there was a great strike from Jordan Swibel, who hasn't really come alive yet. There's another guy that they've got to watch, and so they tied it, and then they gave up a deflected goal in the 75th minute. So they were. It's a bit reminiscent of Halifax or of the Wanderers in that they're there, they look good, they've come back, they've done all this great thing against one of the top teams. I mean, Pacific, as we speak, it was in second place, and they get nothing out of it. But they've got some guys that they got to watch, that the Forge have to watch. Same kind of thing, same kind of danger. I thought that was a bit of a trap game in Halifax, and they. That didn't really happen with their mentality. For just a few little mistakes, and I won't back off that. I thought there were far too many mistakes on soft passes.
Yeah.
But that said, they still had played very well enough to win, and they're going to face the same thing home against. What they're going to have to do, what they did against York, which is establish things right away and say, okay, we're better than you. Here's why, and here is a really good physical example of why, and that's a goal right up near the top.
Yes, and you know what? To your point earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a slightly different version of Valour, having played 8 games on the road to start the season, but now knowing what it feels like to play in front of their home crowd and knowing that, or maybe establishing that sense of community and identity or reinforcing it within the group. So I think that's
true.
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil anything. All right. I got a lot. I got the rest of the week to talk about this one, so I gotta bite my tongue here. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, you'll flesh it all out for us this week and I advise everybody to watch it because we're all going to be smarter at the end of the week from what you flesh out on what the game against Valour. So there you go, partner.
Thanks, Milty. Thanks for the hype up there. Listen, I think we should both
speak to Benni about the progress of his backflip, and then maybe you and I could. Do you think you could do a backflip?
No, not now. I used to do them in the swimming pool. I couldn't do it now. Like, I'd be insane. You know, like I don't even jump off anything anymore but yeah, I could do a backflip, I think, if I wanted to go in for hip surgery again. You know, so when I decide I really want to have hip surgery again, and let me tell you how cute that is for about a year. Yeah, I'll do one then. But maybe we can get him. Let's get a camera down on him at some point. I don't want to make promises we can't keep, but you know, let's get that. I'm just
thinking, like, increases morale on the pitch could increase the morale on the audio network. We could figure it out. And honestly,
do you think the training staff's going to want him to, though?
Well, one of the athletic therapists can backflip and has backflipped on the pitch during practice before. So
but the athletic therapist doesn't have to go in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to run out. They have to run out on the field. But you know, like if I'm one of the Forge coaches and I see you and I standing there saying, "Oh, no, Benni, do 7 more backflips."
Benni, go again, Benni.
No, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. Oh, here, try it with a ball too. You know, because he would.
Benni, can you spot Milty while he tries?
That's right. All right. So.
Okay,
we're not going to do that.
Okay, Milty, thank you so much, and we'll talk again next Monday.
Highlight of my week, Mac.
Me too, Milty. That'll conclude today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to do the same when Milty and I eventually attempt a backflip. I don't think he was kidding, and neither was I. So, just saying. As I mentioned earlier, tomorrow you can tune into another episode of Behind the Beard. Otherwise, there will be a lot more insight in the coming days, including Forge FC's upcoming Valour match, current player form, and of course the CPL standings as well. So thank you again for tuning in, and I'll be back to check in on the audio network tomorrow.
This has been Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share.